Have you ever wondered what the most impactful decision is that you can make about children? Well, the most impactful decision that you can make about children is to have them. And we are all the proof in this room of that, because we would not be here if our parents did not make that decision some time ago. And so if you ever get stuck in reading philosophical existential literature and you don't know a way out, the medical answer to why we exist is simple: blame your parents. And it is because this decision is so important, including its dimension as when to have children, how many and with whom, that it should really be a free decision. And many of us take it for granted, but it isn't yet granted all around the world. But fortunately, very great work is being done to make this free decision to become pregnant or not a universal right. And medicine has been a great enabler and supporter of that quest. Because, of course, medicine has given us the tools to prevent or delay pregnancy with contraception, even to terminate it, but also to help couples conceive when there are natural obstacles. So medicine is really a true enabler. But today I want to shift our focus to a neglected area. I want to shift the focus from the right to be and to become pregnant to the rights of the pregnant. Because there, I'm afraid to say, we are leaving millions and millions of women and families behind. Let me give you a very, very simple example. Earlier this year, a colleague of mine was 6 months pregnant when she developed an abscess of her tooth in her jaw. She went to see her dentist, and the dentist refused to treat her. He said, "Because you are pregnant, I cannot give you an antibiotic to cure it. I cannot give you a painkiller to comfort you, and I cannot use a local anesthetic to open it. Sorry, can't help you." In agony, she went to see another dentist and got exactly the same refusal. And after 2 more days of pain and fear, she actually found herself in the emergency ward of the local hospital. Because by now, the abscess had grown so big that it was about to break open into her bloodstream, thereby endangering the life of her unborn child and potentially her own. This is just one of thousands of examples how throughout the world medicine is denying pregnant women their basic rights simply because they are pregnant. And the cause is quite simple. The cause is that most medicines are contraindicated in pregnancy. And so we like to not use them. But, and here lies the biggest issue, medicine intake in pregnancy is not rare. In fact, the most recent statistic, which comes from the United States, says that up to 90%, 9 out of 10, 90% of all women take medicines during their pregnancy. Not vitamins and supplements, medicines. And not just one, but on average 3 to 4 medicines during the pregnancy. Not the whole time, but enough to be registered. And so we have this huge contradiction that we will need to solve. When I first heard this number 90%, I was absolutely shocked. Because as a physician, I had never thought of that, certainly not being that frequent. And so I wanted to understand 90%, why? And actually, when you start looking at it, there are actually 2 main reasons. First of all, pregnant women get sick. And secondly, and increasingly so, the sick become pregnant. Let me explain. Pregnant women get sick for 2 reasons. First of all, of course, they're pregnant. And the pregnancy can induce symptoms that can become so bothersome that you need some form of relief. Or there could be, in unfortunate cases, a medical complication that is so dangerous for the mother and the child that something needs to be done. But the number 1 reason why pregnant women get sick is actually life. Because no matter how blissful a state pregnancy is, because it's not a disease, it does not protect you from the hazards of life. Like in the example of the tooth abscess, as a pregnant woman, you can still get an infection. You can still have an accident at home or in traffic. And you can still have something like cancer happen to you. In fact, and this was another shocker, 1 in every 1,000 women is diagnosed with cancer during her pregnancy. Not before, not after, but during. 1 in every 1,000. And you know, we doctors have been telling them, look, we can't give you an oncological drug because you're pregnant. So either you have to abort your baby or you hang on to it until we can do a very, very, very early elective cesarean, and then we'll treat your cancer. Just imagine the horror of that. Now, the second reason, as I said, and this is probably an even less known group, is the sick who increasingly become pregnant. And why is that? Well, we're getting older in general, but also by the time we conceive. In many countries around the world, the average age of the first pregnancy is now 30 or more. I know for a fact that my wife and I, we were in our mid-30s when we got our first child. And you see this everywhere. And as you get older, you simply have, by nature, a bigger chance of having developed a disease, a chronic condition. And meanwhile, medicine has gotten better at earlier diagnosis of these conditions, and we also learned that for most of these chronic conditions, the earlier you treat, the better the long-term outcome. Think of diabetes, hypertension, all of that. So not only are you, because you're older, more likely to have a disease on board while you get pregnant, it's more likely to be diagnosed and treated. Today already, 1 in 4 women enters pregnancy on top of a chronic condition. And this will only go up as we continue to get older. 2012 data, again from the US, say that in pregnant women, almost 10% had a diagnosis of hypertension before they got pregnant. Another almost 10% the diagnosis of diabetes before they got pregnant. And another 12% the diagnosis of depression. And that's just 3 diseases. And the last group of sick who become increasingly pregnant is the survivors. What do I mean with that? When I was in school, secondary school, I had a friend called Alex. And one Monday, Alex did not come to school. The teacher explained to us that Alex would be out for a while because doctors had found a spot on a bone in his leg. Unfortunately, my friend Alex never came back because he died of bone cancer. And in that same year, another boy from another class died of leukemia. Those diseases used to be almost always lethal just a few decades ago, and now most people survive. They survive often due to the use of very powerful drugs. Sometimes they need to take those drugs for the rest of their life. But they are surviving, they're reaching adulthood, and they're reaching the time where they want to start a family. And we, doctors, know very little about what it means for their capacity to do so. So with 90% of the women taking drugs during pregnancy, we really need to change the current behavior, which is one of inconsistency and avoidance. There are many good initiatives, but they don't reach the women who are pregnant. And I believe this issue, which is one of global nature and which affects all of us, can be solved by doing 3 things. The first is we need to create awareness. Starting today, I want you to go out and talk about this problem because it is so big and it's everywhere and it needs to be entered on the agenda of public discussions and public health and research. We're only going to do that by creating awareness. And we also need to do much more with the data that's already out there, the knowledge, because there are good initiatives, but somehow, like somebody already said, these insights get stuck in medical journals and never translate to the women and their doctors who actually need to make those decisions. And I'm really pleased to announce an initiative that's been started this year, because earlier this year, some people here at TEDxBrussels, when they heard about this problem, they decided they would not remain passive. And they created a charity called Pregnancy Taboos. And the primary purpose is exactly to create global awareness. And I'm very, very, very happy with that. Now, the second thing we need to do is we need to learn more from the data that's already out there and that we're currently not tapping. If you just think about big hospitals and insurance companies, they have started putting our medical data in their databanks about a decade ago, if not 2 decades ago. They're currently sitting on millions of records of people, and many of those got pregnant. So we could go in and check if there was a disease, if a medication was taken, and what it meant for the pregnancy. But we're not doing it because it's not a research priority right now. And it needs to be. And a special plea goes to the producers of mobile apps. They're coming by the hundreds. There's already more than 40,000 health apps, and many of us have them on our mobile phone. It's estimated that today and every day, 250,000 pregnant women in the United States alone self-track their pregnancy by entering data in their mobile app. But unfortunately, these mobile apps are not set up to capture data and let alone to share or analyze it. But just imagine, if we would only know about 10% of that 250,000, that would be the single biggest study ever done on the topic, and we would know much more than we know today. And the last thing we need to do is we need to really raise standards. Standards of research. We need to have the difficult discussions about ethics. Why do women have to be excluded from clinical research systematically? What is the best way to measure? How long should you measure something? And the baby, how long should you follow up? And again, a very good initiative has started this year. The Drug Information Agency, which is a neutral and global not-for-profit organization, has taken this issue to heart and has committed to be the neutral platform where all the stakeholders can come together and discuss. And I strongly believe that these actions will really do something that hasn't happened for half a century. It will break the gridlock and address this taboo. If we can have awareness, if we can learn more from the data we have, and if we can do better science, because there will always be new drugs, always new questions, then we will finally be able to establish the rights of the pregnant. And those rights are, number 1, the right to care. Number 2, the right to informed decisions. And number 3, to benefit from the progress of science. So please, stand up, join me in this quest. Thank you.